Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. And thank you once again for making Justice #1 again last weekend, all weekend long. I very much appreciate your tuning in. We have a packed show tonight. My exclusive interview with House Intelligence Chairman Devin Nunes is moments away. Plus, White House spokesperson Hogan Gidley, Senator Chuck Grassley, and Congressman Jim Jordan are all ahead. But first, my opening statement. Don't you love it when arrogant egomaniacs are hoisted on their own petards? FBI Director James Comey and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe now know the pain of those petards. The Department of Justice is investigating Andrew McCabe now after an Obama-appointed IG made a criminal referral. And pompous Cardinal Comey is now being investigated for leaking classified information. And Comey's memos were released this week, and they were supposed to lay out the real reason for his firing. That Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians, and Donald Trump was looking to obstruct justice. Well, unfortunately for the Democrats and the mainstream media, they prove just the opposite. And they go against virtually everything that Comey has said about Trump. Now, because he didn't trust the president, Comey made notes of his presidential meetings. The memos were written contemporaneous with the meetings, one within 5 minutes of the meeting. Contemporaneous notes carry great weight because they're made almost immediately after the event when the memory is fresh. But unfortunately for Jim Comey, they do not support his narrative. In fact, they prove the opposite. They prove, one, that the president encouraged the FBI director to investigate the issue of collusion between anyone on the Trump campaign and Russia. Number two, the president encouraged the FBI director to investigate the Steele dossier. And number three, the president wanted to make sure that his administration was free of leaks. And here's the rub. The meeting with the president by Comey was a setup to allow CNN to go forward with a negative story about the president and to create the illusion of Russia collusion. Comey himself admits the president. CNN wants to go forward with a story because some leaker gave them the dossier. But there needs to be a news hook. So the meeting for the discussion about the dossier would be the hook. And 4 days later, CNN had the story that Comey told the president about that salacious dossier. And Comey himself was the one who created the hook. But folks, it gets even better. James Clapper, the man I told you last week that Jim Comey said he admires most in government, who we already know is a liar based on his "we don't spy on Americans," well, not wittingly at least. Clapper told Comey to meet with the president to speak about the dossier. Comey is dumb enough to admit it in the memo. He then says, this is Comey speaking, "I then executed the session exactly as I had planned. I said the Russians allegedly had the tapes involving him and prostitutes in Moscow so that they could lend credence to the hyped-up Russia collusion investigation." Trump, however, interjects, saying, "There were never prostitutes." Comey lied and said the FBI is keeping a close hold on that dossier, so there would be no excuse for it to expose this story. So let me make it real simple. Clapper tells Comey to meet with the president to alert him about the prostitutes, which is a pretext to create a news hook so that CNN can leak the story about the prostitutes. But once Comey is fired, he decides he's going to leak information to get to the New York Times now that the Department of Justice is looking at that leak of classified information.
My judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square, and so I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
Jim, you're the head of the FBI. You told the president in that memo repeatedly, your memos, that the president wasn't under investigation. You get fired. now you need to put things in the public square to get a special counsel? Why? Your memo, the first one, was actually sent to the FBI, to McCabe and Company. And since there clearly wasn't anything criminal in that memo, then what's with your hogwash about you need to get information into the public square to get a special counsel appointed? Jim, it's so obvious. You're fired and you're mad. You're a liar and you're a leaker. You're pompous, you're egotistical, you're condescending, and you violate the very laws that you're sworn to uphold because you want to make news, because you want to write a book, because you want to be a hero, and because you don't think the rules apply to you, and because you, like your friend McCabe, according to the Inspector General, do it for personal gain. Newsflash. You didn't have a right to leak that information. Once you took those memos out of the building to leak to the New York Times, you, James Comey, committed a crime. You had no right to do that. They were not personal notes. They were not memos to yourself. They were memos to other FBI agents. And if Donald Trump needed investigating, Jim, answer me this. Why didn't you investigate him when you were the highest-ranking law enforcement official in the nation? Why? Because there was no investigation that was needed, and it was secondary in any event. It was phony. You needed to make yourself the protagonist. And now we know that but for those memos and your illegal leak to the New York Times, Robert Mueller wouldn't be doing what he's doing, and that is tearing at the fabric of this country. And ain't it bittersweet irony, Jim, that both you and McCabe are being looked at for the same thing that Hillary was looked at? You're in the same boat as she. But you let her loose because you said she didn't intend to have classified information on her server. But Jim, you hoisted yourself on your own petard when you made it clear that you intended to release those classified memos so that you could get even with the president. You established the intent that you say was missing in Hillary's case. Jim, the FBI's not proud of you. You're a former FBI director out there discussing matters presently under investigation as a special counsel is doing that very thing. Where do you come off publishing a book about issues under investigation, even admitting that what you leaked was secret and therefore classified? But you protest. I don't do sneaky things. I don't leak. I don't make weasel moves. Jim, are you schizo? On the one hand, you lie to the president that you don't leak, and the whole point of the memo was to leak it. And now on your book tour, you say, it's true. I am a leaker. And Jim, you're a political operative too. You wanted Hillary Clinton to be president. You even changed the definition of the law to let her get away with it. And you played along with Loretta Lynch so that she could get away with it.
Do you think we'd be a lot better off with Hillary Clinton as president than Donald Trump?
Certainly, given her commitment to our traditions and our norms and our values and the rule of law, yes.
Her commitment to the rule of law? Jim, you also have to keep your facts straight. The same day you said Hillary would be a better president, you demur and say it's too hard to go back in time and answer whether she'd be a better president when asked a few hours earlier. Jim, do your answers depend on the time of day or on medication? Jim, it isn't working. You're trying to look like an objective individual until you again admit that you're not.
I see the Republican Party, as near as I can tell, reflects now entirely Donald Trump's values, which is it doesn't reflect values at all. It's transactional. It's ego-driven. It's in service to his ego.
So she'd be a better president. But, Jim, you need to be careful. You need to be very, very careful. You knew from the get-go that you were going to cut Hillary loose, and you knew from your time in the Obama administration that you would go after Donald Trump. You've deceived the American people. And as a result, you, the director of the FBI, are under investigation for leaking classified information. You could be looked at for theft of government property, obstruction of justice yourself, and a clear abuse of power. And if I were a betting woman, I'd bet that your friend Clapper is another one soon to be under investigation. And the bittersweet irony for all Americans is that we will be able to watch you fight each other. Andrew McCabe, who says you told him repeatedly that it was okay to leak to the Wall Street Journal, and Loretta Lynch, whom you accused of pressuring you not to call Hillary's case an investigation. So now, folks, the whole idea of Russian collusion with the Donald Trump campaign fades into obscurity. We now know, and we now see the deep state doing what it does best. State actors protecting each other and like-minded members of the system. But if there's any justice and the Department of Justice is independently run, you'll all be made accountable. And finally, Jim, you've done more damage to the FBI as an institution than J. Edgar Hoover, because your mission was to change the course of American presidential history. The only difference between you and J. Edgar is that he wore dresses. And even if you wanted to, you probably couldn't get one to fit you at 6 feet 8 inches. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, hashtag Judge Jeanine. And according to his own words, Comey says on several occasions that they were not investigating the president. Here with reaction to my opening statement and all developing stories tonight, White House Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley, who joins me now. All right, good evening, Hogan. How are you?
I'm great, Judge. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Long-awaited memos come out. The Democrats say that it proves that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians. And yet the president, in James Comey's words and his own memo, is saying, I want you to look into this collusion thing. I want you to look into leaking. I want you to look into this dossier. He says it repeatedly. Is Comey schizo? What's going on with this guy?
James Comey is a disgraced, disgruntled, and now discredited individual who got fired from the FBI, and you outlined it beautifully. He lied and he leaked it. He leaked and then lied about leaking. And the best part was he didn't just do it once. He set up a systematic way in which he could get to one of his friends to take classified information. He classified the documents.
Yes, he did.
And then set up this elaborate scheme to somehow leak that classified information to the New York Times so the American people could see it. It's incredible what this guy's done, and he's disgraced at every level. The head of the FBI using politics, poll numbers, and personal bias to do his job. The American people should be outraged, and it's dangerous for us as American citizens when someone behaves this way.
And you know what's interesting is the president kept saying, can you please leak? I'm not under investigation, because you just told me I'm not. That's the only thing that's not leaked. If you can't figure this out, go ahead, Hogan.
No, it's incredible, and you're right. You mentioned he's 6 foot 8 inches tall. Look, it takes a lot of talent for someone that tall to make himself this small, right? He's been on every single newscast, every single interview, and he can't get his own story straight. He's lying again about lying before. It's incredible what this person has done. It's incredible that he was the most hated person in Washington, D.C. until President Trump fired him. Now he's the toast of the town. He's all over every network because they want him to say bad things about Donald Trump. The problem is it's falling flat. There are no revelations in here except for one, and that is the higher loyalty James Comey talks about is to no one but himself. He has completely ignored the American people, their will in electing Donald Trump. He has done a horrible job at the FBI, not doing his job and turning his back on fairness. Okay. It's incredible what's going on.
I want to get one last question in here. The president tweeted that James Comey's memos are classified. I did not declassify them. They belong to our government. Therefore, he broke the law. He totally made up things. He said, I said, and he's already a proven liar and a leaker. Where are the memos on Clinton, Lynch, and others? The part that I want to ask you is, where do you think this ends up? Do you have a Department of Justice that you're confident can go forward with this?
Look, I believe the president's absolutely right there, and I don't know what the future. Right, I don't know what the future holds in this particular instance, but I can say this: I don't think this is the end of what we know about James Comey. I think this is the beginning. And more stuff is going to come out. There are serious problems with what he did. As you know, classified information touched his hands, and then he leaked it out to the public. That's a serious problem. We should all be concerned.
Well, then let's just hope that the Department of Justice considers it a serious problem. Hogan Gidley, thanks so much for being here. And
thank you, Judge.
Joining me now with a reaction to the president's latest tweets, the criminal charges recommended for fire FBI official Andrew McCabe, and of course the Comey memos. We are delighted to finally have him on, Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes. All right, good evening, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that in reading the president's tweet with the Hogan Gidley, at the end, the president says, where are the memos on Clinton, Lynch, and the others? And I think that's a good place to start with you, because as I understand it, you guys have received something like, I don't know, 3,000 out of 1.2 million memos and documents. When do you think you'll get them?
Well, we're still fighting to get them. The good thing is that both the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee are now also fully engaged in this, and we're running out of time. The thing that I don't like about all of this is it seems like we have to get to the point where we threaten subpoena or threaten contempt or threaten impeachment before we're delivered any documents, and that has to stop immediately. So if DOJ can't deliver them, then the executive branch is going to have to step in, or Congress is going to have to go to these great lengths to get this. And what I'm worried about here, and I don't think it's a big secret, but that they're just trying to stall. The Democrats, the mainstream media, I think people within DOJ and FBI, they think they can take back the House of Representatives in November. So they're trying to stall so that they can shut down these investigations come November.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I think it's interesting. I believe the president said the other day that he had given something like 1.4 million documents to this special counsel. Well, isn't it interesting that the president can do that, but, you know, the Department of Justice and the FBI, they procrastinate, they redact, and they also, what is very upsetting to me is the FBI says Mueller has the things that you want, so we don't have it anymore. But they lied about that. They lied about not having emails between the Department of Justice and the FBI on the Lynch tarmac meeting. I mean, if they are able to just be dilatory and delay, then justice delayed, of course, is justice denied. We can't just start being nice. When are we going to start putting teeth in what we do?
No, we can't be nice, and that's what I've tried to tell all of my colleagues. This is not a time for being nice. That time was over long ago. If you remember, there's been several times where we've been told that documents didn't exist, and then we find out days, even months, several months later, that in fact documents do exist. So the fact, and I'm going to go back to what you were talking about in your opening statement. Here's something I also would like your viewers to think about and to see who they believe. So in January of 2017, we were briefed on the dossier, the now famous dossier, the dirt. We were told by Mr. Comey, we were told by Mr. Comey when we asked in early 2017, where did this come from? And he said, well, he says, I think it was started from Republicans. Well, he never told us that it wasn't started by Republicans. That, in fact, was a lie. And then he came back and said that maybe some Democrats had something to do with it, but now, you know, now he claims he didn't know the Democrats had anything to do with it. So you are the top person at the FBI, the world's premier law enforcement agency. You're getting ready to brief the President of the United States on something that you know is unverified and salacious. That's his own words. And you don't ask the FBI and all your agents, hey, where did this dossier come from? That was a simple question.
Well,
you're going to brief the Congress and the President of the United States, and you don't know where it came from?
But not only does he not know, it's not believable, and yet he vouched for it as part of the application for the FISA warrant. I mean, the guy is schizo. He's going back and forth on everything. And this whole idea that, you know, that it's reliable for the court, but it's not reliable, and that when Stephanopoulos said to him, should the president have been told that, you know, this thing was paid for by Hillary and the DNC? You know what he said? He said, well, I don't know. Not he didn't know where it came from, because at that point he did. But let me ask you this, Chairman.
And that's what I'm referring to. Go ahead. Go
right.
ahead.
What about the DNC lawsuit? How do you interpret that?
Well, they ought to be suing themselves. So they're the ones that colluded with Russians. So they're the ones that have an FEC violation. They didn't report that they were paying Fusion GPS, right? That they were digging up dirt on the Trump campaign. None of that was reported. So they ought to be suing themselves. This is nothing more than a scam to keep their base fired up. This is about the extreme left, the socialist left, wanting to never accept that the President of the United States was rightfully and duly elected, carried a number of states that nobody expected him to carry. So this is a fundraising scheme. It's nothing more, nothing less. It's a fundraising scheme because the Democrats are out of money, and that's what this is about.
All right. Chairman Devin Nunes, thank you so much for your time tonight. And the most outrageous comments of the week with Dan Bongino still ahead, plus my exclusive interview with Senator Charles Grassley. But next, Congressman Jim Jordan joins me live in studio to talk McCabe, Comey, Mueller, and where these investigations should all end up. Next. My next guest has been relentless in his fight for the truth in both Clinton and Russia investigation. We're delighted to have Congressman Jim Jordan in studio tonight. All right. Good evening, Congressman.
Good evening.
All right. Now, you heard Devin Nunes, and you also heard Hogan Gidley. One of the things that concerns me is that, and I try to ask all my guests, especially guests like you, my viewers want to know if ever there's going to be justice. My viewers want to know what they can expect, or are we all just spinning our wheels here?
Andy McCabe's about to find out, right? I mean, Andrew McCabe, what he did, 4 different times lied, 3 of those times under oath, and now a criminal referral for Andy McCabe. And if you read that, what Horowitz released, this is the most telling. I mean, Hogan used the word scheme. Talk about a scheme, trying to, for his personal interest, not the public interest, as the report says. The next day, when the story is out there, he calls up 2 people not associated with the leak and yells at them and says, don't let these leaks happen, trying to cover his tracks. So that is as bad as it gets.
This
and this is the number 2 guy.
Horrible. It is just horrible. It's scary. Let's talk about that first memo that Jim Comey did. The one he said he had to leak so that he could get justice and get a special counsel.
After the January 6th meeting.
Yes. Right. I said in my open, look, you didn't have to leak it. It didn't have to be investigated. You already sent it to the FBI.
Right at the top of the memo, it's to Andy McCabe, Jim Baker, and Jim Rubicki. And what's interesting about those 3 individuals, Andy McCabe's been fired and now faces a criminal referral.
Right.
Jim Baker, former chief counsel at the FBI, has been demoted and reassigned. Jim Baker, former chief of staff to Jim Comey, has left the FBI. So you think about
these. They're all gone?
They're either demoted, either fired, under prosecution potentially, demoted and reassigned, or they've left.
Now, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me the top people at the FBI. You could throw in Comey's been fired, director of the FBI, deputy director Andrew McCabe's been essentially, Jim Baker, former chief counsel at the FBI, has been demoted, reassigned. Peter Strzok, deputy head of counterintelligence, demoted, reassigned. Lisa Page, FBI counsel, demoted, reassigned. Jim Rubicki has left the FBI altogether. So those are the top people, and we wonder why in the world Jeff Sessions won't name a second special counsel when you have that happening?
So let's talk about Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions, we hear this week that if you fire Rosenstein, I'm leaving. What's that about?
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to ask the Attorney General. But one of the questions that's come up in talking with Congressman Zeldin, Congressman Meadows, and I, we're wondering, was Jeff Sessions consulted on the Cohen kick-in-the-door raid? Because understand, this happened outside the special counsel. So this wasn't under the umbrella of Robert Mueller. This goes to Main Justice. What we've heard in the press is Rod Rosenstein said, okay, Southern District of New York, go kick in the door of Michael Cohen's office and business and get these documents. I want to know, was the Attorney General consulted? Because if it's not under the umbrella of the special counsel, Jeff Sessions conceivably shouldn't be recused. And we're talking about not just any old lawyer. We're talking about a lawyer to the President of the United States of America. That seems to me something the Attorney General should be consulted on. So Mr. Meadows and Mr. Zeldin and I plan to send a letter to the Attorney General and just ask him, were you consulted? Did you approve? Were you in any way a part of that decision? Because it seems to me he should have been.
And you know what? Talk about kicking down the door. Gee, they didn't kick down Hillary Clinton's door. They didn't kick down any of those doors, did they?
They called up Cheryl Mills and said, you know, Cheryl, what time can we come over to get these documents?
Yeah. Do you have time to get rid of everything? Congressman Jordan, really great to have you on the show. Thanks so much.
You bet.
And one-on-one with Senator Charles Grassley still ahead of next. He scared off all the Democrats he usually debates on this show. So tonight, Dan Bongino joins me solo to talk about the most outrageous comments we've heard this week. Don't go away. So believe it or not, some people out there still think James Comey is a truthful person. Take a look, listen to none other than Eric Holder on this.
I think he is a truthful person. I think he's a man of honor, a person of integrity. I think he's also a person who made some really serious mistakes.
And that's just one of the most outrageous things I heard this week. Here with reaction to that and more, former Secret Service agent and NRA TV contributor Dan Bongino. All right, Dan, what say you to Eric Holder?
Yeah, well, Barack Obama made a big mistake appointing Eric Holder, who is the only attorney general, by the way, in modern U.S. history to be held in contempt of Congress. So what a mistake that was. But getting back to Comey, Judge, listen, your opening statement was great. Jim Comey needs to be held to account. There are two Jim Comeys. There's the Jim Comey in front of Congress that hid the fact that he was engaged in an illicit investigation against the president for 8 months. 8 months. I'll put it up there for the list. And then, by the way, so he hides that info, Judge. But then when he could hurt the president by leaking memos, what does he do? He unhides some information and leaks it to his buddies. Jim Comey is not a good guy. I'm sorry, folks. Eric Holder is just doing that because he wants to hurt Donald Trump. He really knows what's up here. He's just doing it to hurt Trump.
You know, Dan, I said in the open, I said, you know, I think Clapper's next. I mean, this guy, Clapper, he's lied to Congress. I said years ago when he said, oh, we don't spy on anybody, not wittingly. Anyway, I'll keep going. Okay, so the Dems seem to have moved on now, Dan, from impeachment. They seem to just want Donald Trump arrested. Take a listen.
I hope there's a couple where I interrogate him, then I arrest him, and then I escort him to jail.
What if Donald Trump simply decides, I don't have to follow the law, I refuse to be held under the law, no marshal can get into this White House, and any Secret Service agent that defies me is fired?
Dan, can you believe these people are talking about arresting the president for what?
Yeah, Judge, seriously, I mean, who knows? They're psychotic. You can't debate with these people. They've lost their minds. You know what? Do you remember that journalist scandal where the journalists had that email group where they would email each other with horrible stories and ways to attack conservatives? I wonder sometimes if there's like a Hollywood snobbo list. Like if they have an email list where they email each other about unique and dumber ways to attack the president. Like, we're going to arrest them at the White House. And what is the Secret Service? Judge, I was in the Secret Service. I promise you, there is not one Secret Service agent losing 1 second of sleep at night worrying about these delusional liberals' fairy tales of arresting Donald Trump at the White House. This is really psychotic stuff.
And what's with De Niro? I mean, De Niro, we don't care what you think. I mean, this guy, think about actors, Dan. You know what they do? They have to read other people's words to make a living. That's what they do. I mean, come up with something yourself.
You know, Bobby D hasn't had an original line since Goodfellas. You insulted him a little bit, I used to respect this guy, but the truth is, this stuff he's doing now is just really crazy. I don't know why. He must be mistaken his tough guy persona in the movies for a real life thing. But Bob, nobody cares. Seriously, no one's buying tickets from your movies on our side of the aisle anymore. And this is not a PR program to get a higher salary for your next film, because we're just avoiding people like this now.
All right, Dan Bongino, always good to have you on the show. Thanks for being with us. Judge. All right. My exclusive interview with Senator and Chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Charles Grassley, is next. All right, Senator Grassley, thanks so much for being with us tonight. And I want to start by asking what you think of the fact that several conservative congressmen have asked for Jeff Sessions to investigate Hillary, Comey, McCabe, Lynch. Here we are almost a year and a half into the Trump administration, and they're still asking Sessions to do what they've been asking him to do for almost a year.
I wouldn't be surprised, but some of that might be happening and we don't know about it because of the tradition within the Justice Department and the FBI not to talk about ongoing investigations. You hear rumors about some things that are being done that aren't talked about very regularly. And I would just suggest that anybody that's involved in enforcing the law, and everybody in the Justice Department ought to be involved in that, you follow the facts where they take you.
When we hope that they do that, but with all due respect, the American public has lost confidence in the FBI. And you and I both know that, you know, the FBI leaks like a sieve, even at the top, starting with Jim Comey, leaking information that some say is classified so that it would get to the New York Times. So how can we be confident in this Department of Justice, in this FBI?
First of all, I think you could have confidence in the people that aren't running the FBI, that they're doing their job. And I think that we all have a responsibility, including those in the FBI and those in the Justice Department, to do what we can to reestablish the integrity of the FBI that's been warped a little bit by some of the things that McCabe and Comey have been involved in, not just in this administration, but in previous administrations.
The American people are frustrated. My viewers are frustrated. Let's talk about the fact that I believe you asked a direct question to Jim Comey in May of 2017. You said, Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation? Comey replied, never. Then you say, question 2, have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about Trump or Clinton investigation? Comey again said no. You had a reason for asking those questions. That would be a predicate for perjury, and you know it. The problem is that we now have an attorney general who has recused himself, and you are continuing to push a bill to protect Mueller. All right? First question, do you believe Comey lied to you?
I think that there's plenty of evidence there that that ought to be carried further, because whether he was under oath, but even if he wasn't under oath, it's against the law to lie to Congress.
Okay, it's against the law to lie to Congress, against the law to lie to the FBI. You have confidence in Jeff Sessions?
Yes, I do.
All right. You have so much confidence that you're pushing this bill to prohibit the president from firing Mueller, although the president for the past 4 months has not said he's firing Mueller. Why do you continue to push this bill?
I push this bill because I made a commitment to my colleagues when they introduced 3 different bills. I said, I'm not going to deal with 3 different bills. There's some question about the constitutionality of it. I said, if you get together, I'll bring it up. Now, I don't think Mueller's going to be fired. I'm not sure that there's a need for legislation, but when I make a commitment to my colleagues that if you can get a bipartisan agreement, I'm chairman of the committee, I feel like I have a responsibility to keep my word to my colleagues.
Senator, you are an extremely important individual. You are one of the lions of the Senate. You have been in Congress since 1974. You get this, all right? The Senate has passed virtually no bills last year. The House passed over 400 bills. What are you guys doing dilly-dallying about whether Mueller should be fired? You yourself have said that there doesn't appear to be any evidence of collusion. Why are we wasting taxpayer money?
Well, instead of answering your question, you brought up a very important issue. The Senate isn't getting much legislating done because we face a Democrat filibuster on every non-controversial and even controversial nominees, but most of these nominees are non-controversial.
Almost 50 years. What would you change if you could?
You ask a very difficult question. I think that what I would like to do is have the people that police our system, the media, if they would be more fair in their reporting and not be so liberally oriented, it would go a long ways towards reestablishing people's confidence in our government. That's what I would change. Now, you aren't going to do that by law. That's within the discipline of journalism. But they have a lot to do with whether or not people, whether or not government's doing its business, whether people have confidence in the government, because they're always reporting on controversy, never reporting on things where people get along.
What can the American people do when we see these injustices?
We've got a president that has come to town to drain the swamp. It's pretty hard to drain the swamp when you have 3 branches of government, but I'm convinced this president is doing everything he can to drain the swamp because he's questioning the culture of this town.
You question the culture of this town?
Every day. That's what oversight's all about. That's what saying, for instance, if something's wrong and you expose it, and the people that did the wrongdoing, if they don't get fired, if heads don't roll, nothing's going to change in Washington.
My thanks to Senator Grassley. The wait now is over. Street Justice is back, and it's next. Street Justice is back and better than ever. This week I hit the streets to talk the Comey book mania. Take a look. So, President Trump is calling former FBI Director James Comey a proven leaker and a liar. So, do people plan to buy Comey's book? We're here in Midtown Manhattan to find out.
No.
Are you going to buy Jim Comey's book? No. Why not?
Because I just don't care.
You don't care? Do you like Jim Comey?
I really don't know who he is.
Okay. Are you buying Jim Comey's book, A Higher Loyalty?
No.
Why not? Are you buying it?
Heck no.
You buying Jim Comey's book?
Absolutely. I'm going to buy Jim Comey's book. No doubt about it.
Okay. And what do you think of the name of it, A Higher Loyalty?
Oh, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he's a great guy.
You think he's great? Did you ever work with him?
Absolutely. No, I haven't, but I would love to.
I did.
Oh, that's great.
I did, yes.
I think it's garbage.
You think it's garbage? But how do you know? You haven't read it.
I've seen some of the excerpts that are coming out. I'm not impressed.
Are you going to buy Jim Comey's book?
Hell no.
Why not?
Because you know what? He waits till he gets out of office. Now he got something to say. And why he didn't stand up and have some kahunas?
I haven't been the biggest fan of the FBI lately.
Yeah, does it have to do with the fact that they're very political and that they wanted to have someone other than Trump win?
She's a good talker. She knows what I'm talking about.
Are you going to buy Jim Comey's book?
Yes.
Yes?
Absolutely.
Good. How
what
much
do you
you
think
gonna
about
pay?
the president that uses the word slime ball? What do you think about that?
Well, what do you think about an FBI director who calls the president a mob boss? You tell me.
I think he's right.
Are you going to buy Jim Comey's book?
Hell no.
I don't like to read fiction. I like real life stories.
Are you going to buy Jim Comey's book, A Higher Loyalty?
James Comey?
James Comey, yes.
Maybe. Probably not.
He tells nothing but lies.
Well, don't you have to read it to know whether it's true?
No. We raised children. We heard all the whining already.
I consider buying it.
Yeah?
If you follow it on Twitter, apparently it's like really, like, spicy.
We'll be right back. So, my new book is coming out in June, Liars, Leakers, and Liberals, the case against the anti-Trump conspiracy. But you can pre-order it now just by going on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I'm Jeanine Pirro, advocating for truth, justice, and the American way. But before we go, a sad day in America. She was a powerful woman at a time when women were not powerful. She didn't care about coloring her hair or the genuineness of her pearls. She cared about things that mattered: love, loyalty, and family. Barbara Bush, America says good night and thank you. The Greg Gutfeld Show is next.
The man who wrote these memos is our guest tonight. I'm very much looking forward to asking him about that and everything else under the sun.
I don't know enough. Yeah, I can't answer that. I mean, I could, but I can't. I don't know whether I can answer that, Rachel. I don't think I can answer that as I sit here.
Let me ask you a related question that I also don't know if you can answer.
Come on, he's got to know something.
I'm not permitted to answer that. I have no personal knowledge of that. I don't know anything about that, and if I did, I wouldn't say.
I'm going to ask you more questions that you can answer.
I don't know. I had no idea, and I didn't know. I don't know for sure. I can't recall. And that's another one I can't answer.
Guess he doesn't know. Stormy, 2 peas in a pod. One had a book, another had a sketch. And they tried to outdo each other in a game of publicity ping pong.
I thought, honestly, that he was, sort of handsome.
You realize I'm actually kind of an honest idiot?
I have, bodyguards, and you don't even want to know their food bill.
I think I'm a good person where I lied.
My baby had a blowout in her diaper.
During the salad before the shrimp scampi.
I'm a better actress than he is.
There might be green men out there.
Women like me matter.
I don't want to be too tough on myself.
I'm done being bullied.
It sucked.
Oh, yeah. Now, as for those Comey memos, I got more of a shock taking my tube socks out of the dryer. I'm sorry, the collusion seems more between Democrats and the media than anyone else. But if you're a Democrat, you're thinking, crap, this stuff isn't working. What do we do now?
The Democratic Party has filed a federal lawsuit in Manhattan against the Russian government, the Russian intelligence service, WikiLeaks, and the Trump campaign, alleging damage to the Democratic Party as a result of the hack in the 2016 presidential election.
That's amazing. They're suing Russia. They're suing Russia. There's another new avenue to unseat the president because all the other previous ones are dead ends. It's my golden rule. When idiots don't get what they want, they sue. Now, judging by all the coverage, you'd think that was it for the week. Well, not so, my friends. Over Easter, Mike Pompeo met Kim Jong-un.
He said that Pompeo had a great meeting and that they're setting up this summit, if you will. This is the highest level contact between the North Korean leadership and the United States leadership in the history of the two things.
So, we find out about the meeting on Tuesday night. By Friday, we're hearing North Korea was suspending its nuclear and long-range missile tests. Yeah, nothing important here. It's certainly not up there with a rich guy banging a porn star. Actually, if Kim is true to his word, this is, to quote Joe Biden from years ago, a big deal. Even the guy on CNN admitted it.
This is an extraordinarily significant development and, frankly, a huge win for President Trump.
Kim has a funny voice. This could be super huge. This could be up there with the Berlin Wall coming down, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the breakup of Menudo. What's for me? And I got to wonder, it has to be hard on all those other networks. How do they cover something this monumental if Trump's responsible? And what if Dennis Rodman helped? It's possible. I owe him an apology. Fact is, if Trump solves North Korea, make some room for him on Rushmore. And if you factor in other accomplishments, ISIS, the economy, China, you might need to clear off the whole damn mountain. So where does this leave the never-Trumpers? Clapping for car accidents. Terrible audience we have here. It's time for an intervention. Think about what they're doing, obsessing over a decade-old sex romp while the world stage